Hello and welcome back to DEDS, the show where I do the cook. Here's the thing, y'all, full disclosure. I went to a concert last night in Huntsville, Alabama. I'll talk about a little bit later on in the month. I got back into Nashville at 1:30 in the morning. I'm tired and I'd love to put this off, but this is an 8-hour recipe, so I gotta get started now. Okay, so here's what we're doing today. We are making some Mississippi style pot roast. This style of pot roast we're making, I kind of cobbled together from a couple different recipes, but I will leave the main one linked in the description down below. But before we do that, we have something else to prepare, and that is the ranch dressing mix that we are going to be using for seasoning that pot roast. So we're going to get started on that, and then we are going to do the pot roast proper. So here's what you're going to need for a ranch dressing mix: buttermilk powder, garlic powder, onion powder, chives, oregano, and thyme. There are other things you can put in ranch dressing mix that I don't have access to right now. Also, you could just buy ranch dressing mix, but I want to make things more complicated than they need to be. Let's get a bowl and mix all this stuff together. All right, we're going to start off with 1/2 cup of the buttermilk powder. I assume if you're making ranch dressing that you use buttermilk. Man, I just spilled a lot of it. Guys, this ain't gonna be top tier kitchen content today. Never is, but especially today. Then we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of our oregano. Gonna do 2 teaspoons of our thyme. Doesn't quite work. 1 teaspoon of our chives. And I like chives, so I'm gonna make it closer to 2 teaspoons. This contraption has outlived its usefulness. No! Not you too! 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Then we're just gonna throw in a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't think I've ever measured out salt and pepper when I'm seasoning. If you're baking, measure out the salt. But if you're just seasoning, let the wind guide you. All right, and then you mix it up. I'm noticing the buttermilk can kind of clump together, so if you want to just try to undo those clumps to make sure that you can get all the seasoning evenly spread out, probably be a good thing. I don't know. I'm not your boss. When you feel like you've done an adequate job, set that aside. All right, and now on to the main event. Along with your ranch seasoning, you're going to want a little bit of an onion, 8 pepperoni peppers, although I am going to be probably putting several more in, 1 stick of butter, and your meat of choice, whether that be chuck roast or pork roast. Now, when you make a pot roast, you usually want to brown it before you actually put it in your crock pot. You can do this in the oven, on top of your stove, but since I'm at my parents' place, I want to do it on their grill. I don't get a grill that much because I don't have one at my apartment. So I'm going to take full advantage of this. After throwing them on the grill, I salted and peppered them and just let them cook for a little bit on each side. Now, I forgot to get this on camera, but I did cut them in half because that's the easiest way they will fit into the crock pot once they're done, but also smaller pieces cook quicker. One of the halves did cook a lot quicker than the other one though, so I just set that to the side and let that other one cook before bringing it inside to the crock pot. While the roast is cooking out there, we're going to chop up the onion. This is a little bit of onion that I had left from something else that I cooked. It's not a lot. You probably could go for putting a half to a full onion in here. This is like maybe a third, but I'm going to use what I got. We already have onion powder in our ranch dressing dip, so the flavor should balance out. I don't think you really have to get them any more chopped up than that. I think this will definitely do it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few in our crock pot. And then I'll put a few on top of the roast once that goes in our crock pot. And I'm going to do the same for our pepperoncinis. I'm just going to put 1 or 2 down there. Need to cut off the stems first. Pepperoncinis are just so juicy because they're pickled. So when you cut into them, or you really do anything with them, the juices just spray everywhere. All right, so I have the meat in here. Along with the onions and pepperoncinis I put at the bottom, I put in a little bit of olive oil just to give a little bit of slickness to the bottom of the crock pot. But then I put the meat in. And so now we are going to put in, I'm kind of thinking put in the ranch first, and then we'll put in the rest of the pepperoncinis and onions, and then we'll throw in our stick of butter on top. I want to make sure it's kind of evenly spread. Move around the meat a little bit to get the parts that are being covered elsewhere. All right, that is in there now. Time for the onions. Once again, just trying to spread those out, get them nice and situated. Good news is this whole process has taken long enough that I'm starting to wake up a little bit more, which is nice. I'm putting in some pepperoncinis that are cut up too, which will spread the seeds out, which will raise the heat. And I'm just kind of, like the salt and pepper, just kind of going where the wind follows me with this one. One more for good measure. That one doesn't even have the stem on, so that's perfect. All right, I think I've threw in about a dozen pepperoncinis in there. So now time for the butter, which is real simple. Boom, we're done. And with that, all we have to do is put it in the crock pot, put the crock pot in the cooker, and then let it cook on low for 8 hours. That's the nice thing about crock pot meals. You can just kind of let them be for the rest of the day. The downside is that you have to get them ready in the morning. The bulk of the work is going to be in the morning if you want to have it in time for dinner. But I don't have to worry about this for 8 hours. Voila. So here I am 8 hours later with a little bit more energy, but I will admit, still not much. I've already opened this up. It smells delicious. I think that without further ado, it's time to cut into it. It's already just falling apart just with the fork poking it. Let me get some onions and one of these pepperoncinis over here. So we're getting a full bit of the flavor. And I'm gonna get just a little bit of this, a little bit of the juices down here. All right, so let's see how this tastes. Yeah, I like that. Admittedly, I think it could have maybe a little bit more flavor. Could be some things you could add to it. A little bit more onion, maybe throw in some minced garlic in there too. But I think even expanding from that, there's definitely some flavors you could experiment in adding maybe a little bit more heat to it. The pepperoncinis do a really good job though. I really do enjoy those. Definitely some more onion would be really good. And I think actually I'd put more butter into it too. I'd maybe put another half stick in there. Not that it's dry, but definitely that it could be a little bit more fatty in the way where butter adds that. Plus you get a little bit more of that flavor in there as well. I'm saying all this stuff. This is delicious. I'm really looking forward to eating this. And I was gonna make mashed potatoes with it, but there are no potatoes in this house, so I was unable to. However, mashed potatoes would go perfectly with this. Just slap these on top. That would be wonderful. This was well worth the wait. I'm really happy about this. The Mississippi pot roast is a huge success. I'd love to try just a bunch of different ways of preparing it. Love to try it with some other meats. This might become like my go-to crock pot recipe. So thank y'all for watching. Man, I just feel like there's a whole arc of emotions in this episode, but I'm glad where it ended. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna eat more of this now.